Stephen Saunders. I was born in Monroe, Wisconsin. I lived in a small town in southern Wisconsin, about 2,000 people, a little more than that. It was a different culture than exists today, whereby my classmates that I started kindergarten with basically were the same 88 kids that I graduated from high school with, generally speaking. We was a close-knit community. You didn't need to leave town. It was one cultural group. My generation was very cognizant of the Korean War and the Second World War in particular. My dad and many of everybody's dads and uncles had been in the Army. I mean, everybody was, not everybody, but virtually every healthy male was a veteran. In fact, I always had a feeling growing up, and the Cold War was very evident at the time, but I always had a feeling there was going to be a major war and I'd be in it. I always had that feeling since I can first remember. I don't know why, but I enlisted right out of high school. Two friends and I enlisted. In fact, of our 44 males in our high school class, just exactly half were in the military at one time or another, which probably was not unusual for that time period. I signed up for the Airborne infantry. I wanted to be the paratroopers in the infantry, and that was no trouble getting into that. That's
Why?
Right. I just always wanted to jump. I wanted to be in the Airborne, and infantry was what I was suited for at the time. I was kind of a wild kid, you know. I had a wild blood, as they used to say. Went to the division rear area right away, and that was in a place called Camp Radcliffe with no E on it, and that's at Ankhe, two words, A-N-K-H-E, Vietnam. Let me tell you. I mean, everybody, a lot of malaria, all kinds of foot casualties. Jungle rot was really bad. I lost 25 pounds, and I was probably pretty healthy. But, you know, you see these war movies, these big, broad shoulders guys. It was all skinny looking high school freshmen, you know. But we had helicopters bring us food out usually. The longest I ever went without eating was 3 days, I think. But otherwise, we had food. Kill the enemy. Yeah, we were always hunting. We were always hunting for the VC, the NVA, trying to ambush them, bring them to bear, you know, so we could apply firepower. And it didn't always work, but that's, to be blunt about it, that's what we were doing. But what most people don't understand is how cold you can get. I mean, it doesn't have to be very cold, maybe the mid-50s, but if you're wet and it's windy and you just got a jungle jacket on, you're cold. And of course, you're either hot and dry or wet and cold. I mean, there isn't any comfort. There isn't any. And then during the monsoon, you're wet all the time. All the time. We had a lot of contact with the enemy. We had a lot of people got hurt. I mean, it just seemed that way, but every day somebody got hurt. I mean, somehow something happened always. Guys drowned in the ocean and just all kinds of stuff, you know. A lot of booby trap things, and of course contact. Small arms. You know, we'd have, you know, mortars. I had can't remember if it was a mortar round or a B-40 rocket went off, you know, from here to the end of the table. You know, it was a dud. I mean, it hit, but it was a dud. But it was mainly small arms and booby traps. Small arms being machine gun, rifle, you know. You see him, my platoon sergeant, who I was just at his 84th birthday here 2 months ago in Hawaii. Great guy. He was walking ahead of me along a rice paddy dike, and he stopped in mid-stride with his leg back, and there was a wire. He could feel the tension in his ankle, and then I could see the wire in the paddy. And he froze there while we followed it back, and there was 2 or 3, a cluster of grenades, you know. Just luck. You know, there's a lot of times I thought I would die, you know, I might die, but a couple that I was sure. But I'll tell you one, start off with one day. We would send out what they called pony teams. We used to have a squad in the company that was just recon that would operate out around us all the time. 5 or 6 guys that could use stealth, and the company staffed that, and then they would send out what's called a pony team, but it was 3 guys. You would go out a ways for, I think it was like 5 days, 6 days, have enough chow, and just sit and observe a position, maybe a trail junction, a stream bed, a valley. Just sit there and watch and report what you see and move every day. But here's how we went in. They had, and I'm sure the helicopter pilots knew where they were going to set us down. I didn't know, I never talked to them. But they would have 3 helicopters. We were on the first one, and the next 2 helicopters, nobody was on them except the crew. And when we'd fly in treetop, and then the first one with us on it would go to set down, although it didn't set down, it just kept moving, and we jumped off. And then the other 2 would overfly him, and he would pick up and trail. So to anybody that wasn't actually watching that spot, it would appear just 3 choppers in trail were flying. That was the ruse, anyway. We're sitting there and bored out of our skull. It's raining. Hadn't seen a thing other than that file. And I'm sitting here, and I'm a little closer than where you are, and my buddy where the camera is with the radio, and the other guy right here. And I hear shh, and I look up, and there goes about where your head is. There goes a North Vietnamese khaki uniform. He's got an AK-47. Walking right by. I could have, if I had lunged, I'd have grabbed him in the ankle. And these guys, I hope they, and luckily we weren't smoking or talking. And yeah, it just was crazy. Whoa, and then next thing, there's another one. Right there. I mean, if they were right on us and there's only 3 of us, what do you do if somebody gets hit, you know? Oh. We were really lucky. Very, very, very lucky. In fact, we were just back to that spot a year ago last month, where I think it was about a third or a fourth, at least a third of the platoon got shot. That it's like most, if not all of us, are going to get hit. Many, if not all, are going to die, but not me. You know, it won't happen to me. Usually, there was some exceptions when those guys jumped us. I thought we'd had it, but a couple of times like that. And you know, that brings up another thing. I had my wife and adult daughters with me. Went back to Vietnam. I didn't want to go, and that's a long story. Not for here, but we went, and it was wonderful. And the daughter that had been in the Air Force, I'd given her some maps, and I kind of had an idea where we should be, or where we were. Never dreamt of going to any of those places, because by and large, I didn't know where they were. Well, we got really near one place, and long story short, I recognized it was a cave complex anyway, I recognized right where we were, and the bus got near there. There never used to be a road there. And we found the spot. And my daughter even crawled in their firing ports. You know, they were in these rocks, and you could see where they were hitting us, and it was just amazing, amazing. But what I was going to tell you is about 6 or 8 of us kicked off that firefight that day. There was only about a squad of us left on the perimeter, and the rest of the guys were out on ambush patrol or observation. But anyway, my friend came to me. I was a machine gunner. He said, Saunders, Lieutenant Collins says, bring the gun. There is a gook. That's what we called them. There is a gook squad with a crew-served weapon, and we're going to go get him in a firefight. Okay, so we took off running. And we got to this side of this hill, to this cave complex, and there was a little action before then too. And you could see the wet footprints on these black rocks in the sun, so we knew it was recent. And I was down behind a rock, and my platoon leader and platoon sergeant stuck their heads up, and a bullet went right over me and between their heads. Anyway, that kicked it off. The whole day was a firefight. These guys were in these caves, and my machine gunner, my ammo bearer got hit. I know all these guys were getting hit, and we couldn't get to them in the caves. We'd used virtually all our grenades before the day was over, I got JP4, jet fuel out there, pouring the fuel in and trying to ignite that. And used tear gas grenades, because most of our masks worked, mine did. But I could hear this North Vietnamese guy, probably from me to you, but he was on the other side of these huge boulders. We couldn't get to him. You could hear him breathing this stuff. Those guys were tough. I mean, if you've breathed tear gas, this guy was wheezing, just wheezing. They didn't have any masks. Wow. I just think about that all the time, how tough they were. But anyway, we'd run out of grenades, so I had put the gun down, and for some reason, I got up on top of this boulder. We needed more grenades, and a H-13, it's like a little bubble job helicopter. They were observation choppers at the time. Came in right above me. I mean, he was just hovering right above me, and I'm standing on this rock, and there's firing going on, and grenades going off, and the gunner, the guy just carries an M60. You don't have really a gunner, but he's the observation guy. He was throwing down a case of white phosphorus grenades to me. They're big, heavy, not quart size, but almost quart size grenades, and white phosphorus. But he'd throw them down to me one at a time. I'd catch them, and I'd throw them down to a guy named Sergeant Stewart, and he'd pull the pin and throw them in this cave where we knew they were, a whole case of them. And all the while, I'm thinking it was just total exhilaration. There's a helicopter, and there's all this fire and these explosions and the wind, and I know they're going to shoot him down, and if he comes down, they're going to come right down on me, and I know I'm going to get shot off the rock if they don't. And we just did it, and that was totally exhilaration. When we got back that night, and there's 3 guys where I was, my team, and I was the only guy there, and 3 guys in the next hole, and there was only one of those guys left, and then the 2 guys on the other side, and there was only one of those guys left. I mean, I didn't really think about that until many years later about, you just don't, just another day. Yeah, anyway, I kind of digress there, but that was quite a day. But, and I didn't really think about the war. Got out, I went to school straight through, and, career and family, and about 30 years later, 25, 30 years later, it really kind of came down on me. It really did. And I'd start dreaming and things. But pre-internet too, I started searching for some of these guys. What happened to them? I wanted to get a hold of the families. Some of the guys were killed. And I ran ads in newspapers, phone books, and really searched for guys. I really had a need to find these guys and what happened to them. And I had pretty good success. 5 of us met, 4 of us. Under the auspices, they had the 50th anniversary of the formation of the Airborne in 1990 in Washington, D.C. All the World War II units were there, the 509th and the Band of Brothers before as the book came out. And that was really emotional for me. But since then, too, we've gotten in touch with more guys. And recent years, I think we've gotten about everybody I can find. And we get together about every year in conjunction with the 1st Cavalry Division Association meeting. But what I was going to tell you is a real good friend of mine was our platoon medic, and he got hit really bad, right ahead of me, booby trap night. And he got hurt really bad, but he came back to us, and he wouldn't have had to. He was a battalion medic for a while, but then he came to our platoon. But I hadn't seen him for over 40 years, so a few years ago, and he got out of the truck in the parking lot, walked over. It was just like nothing, just like no time had passed. So that's the kind of thing, very close friendships.